On today's episode of the Baseline Scoop, Justin and I break down the first two games of Sixers action, what we've liked, what we haven't liked, and is it time to hit the panic button? Spoiler, it is not. All that and more on today's episode of the Baseline Scoop.
It's 89-84. Sixers, and they get inside. Unbelievable. Julius Erving had it hanging underneath. He was trapped. Going to the baseline right side. Julius in the air, palming over the right hand. Floating, reaching, and setting it in. Watch this fantastic move by the Doctor.
All right, and welcome to episode 55 of the Baseline Scoop. I'm your host, Zach Chavalella, here as always with my guy, Justin Crosby. Justin, Sixers are 0-2. How are you? I hope a little better.
Yeah, Zach, I'm just sitting back down. I almost went and pressed the panic button, but I walked back to my seat because it's no need to hit that just yet.
Yeah, no, it's Sixers Twitter, man. It shambles last night. And I
have
get it.
I have a take for you.
All right,
Not just Sixers Twitter,
okay.
but I just feel like Philadelphia sports Twitter
Yeah,
is either literally we're terrible, blow everything up, what are we doing? Or oh my gosh, we're the best thing ever and nobody could beat us. There's no in between. There's
yeah.
no logic. I
Mhm.
mean, and I won't say no because there are definitely a couple guys and gals out there who really have good points and don't overreact. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But by and large, the reaction is one way or the other, you know.
yes,
And so like you think about the Phillies, and that depends on the outcome of the most recent game. You're
yes,
coming off a win. Oh, the team's winning the World Series. That's it.
yes,
You come off a loss, like, oh, no. See, no,
no,
Rob's not a real manager. We shouldn't have brought him back. Team's gonna lose it all. We're gonna have to trade Reese Hoskins. There's the Phillies version of it. Eagles, they're 6-0, so we don't got to worry about them right now. But with the Sixers team, now they're 0-2. They lost opening night against the Boston Celtics in Boston, and they lost last night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, you and I were both at that game last night. What was the thing that kind of stood out to you the most in the loss against Milwaukee?
still out the most. I have a couple things. First, what stood out to me the most is James Harden's play. Like, I mean, he looked so much better than he did last year. Some people I have seen say that, he started off well his first couple games in Philly last season after the trade, but he had like 2 weeks off, whatever, blah 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 from there. But I just think in general he looks really well. Um, I think he does have some of his pop back. He's not all the way there, but he is getting to the rim. He has made conscious decisions, which to me is a big difference in why we're seeing more efficiency with him, less turnovers going to the rim, is because he's using his floater now, which is something he did not use last year and something he used a lot of times before. And he's pulling up mid range and doing step back mid ranges. And those seem to be, at this point, automatic. And I saw him, work on that in some of the videos in the offseason. You're like, James Harden shooting mid ranges. It's either to the cup or or step back three. And he's not necessarily settling for those things. He's getting to a spot which is like right near the free throw line, the corner of the free throw line, or like near the elbow, and he's shooting his mid range, and it just providing an efficiency and the scoring that they need. Like, and we could talk more about the game, but like if James Harden doesn't play as good as he did, that's a 20-point blowout.
Yeah.
That's a 20-point blowout.
Easy. Absolutely.
So
What
that's
he's doing real well is he is analyzing the court like he used to, and then at that point he's ready to either attack at one of the three levels or dish the rock. Like he's got four options for him right there. Um, the final play of the game wasn't the best example of this, but let's not let that kind of cloud our memory for how he was for the entire game and how he was against Boston. Also, what you talked about his ability driving to the lane, and you're not seeing that, like, he's not rocking the rim or anything like that when he gets there, but but he is getting past his defenders. He is securing the ball as he gets there, and he's getting into the lane for a nice, easy layup. He's getting past his guy, beating his guy. He's not flushing it. We don't need him to flush it, but he's got a nice, easy lay in. So between that, the mid-range game, we're talking about James DeRozan Harden here now. On top of that, the
Seriously.
step back, he's getting the step back. It's coming. You see it like it on that one play in Boston. When I think it was Tatum who went flying, or maybe it was Smart. He may have missed that one, but now you can see that it's slowly working its way back.
Mm-hmm.
The step back is going to be back, and it's going to be a prevalent weapon for Harden in Philadelphia. And this is exactly what the Sixers needed. Now, there are other things going on with the team that they need in order to be a real success. But when you just look at the performance that Ben Simmons has had with the Nets so far, right? Compare that to what James Harden has done with the Sixers. And I'm only bringing up Ben Simmons just because you have to look at what we traded. And the biggest things were Ben Simmons and the picks, right? So you look at 4-5-5 and a foul out in 23 minutes. Compare that to James Harden, who's averaging 33 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. And granted, he's playing 40 minutes a game. Way too many for the beginning of the season. But that's a no-brainer. Who has won this deal? You completely flip the script on it. Now you're looking at James Harden, who looks like his superstar self again. Pair that with a Tyrese Maxey, who they're still trying to figure out how to get him, a few more touches, getting a little more involved in the offense, and a superstar in Joel Embiid, who will find his way back. That's what you need. When you're talking about 3 legitimate all-star and above caliber players. So to have this real version of James Harden back, couldn't be happier. Sixers absolutely needed it. It's just a matter of figuring out everything else, But do you think that this is something that's going to be able to continue for Harden? Is it a little bit of a back and forth? Obviously, he's not going to average 39 minutes a game, during the regular season, or at least he better not, because that is far too many. So what do you think we're going to see going forward from James Harden?
I think we'll see something similar. I think that, of course, as the grind and ups and downs of an 82 game season, there will be a stretch of games where he's not shooting well, he's not playing necessarily well. But I think the biggest thing about Harden is his ability to not only, and I'm talking about his scoring, but like his playmaking is always going to be there, which is, even if he's having a down scoring game, you're going to be able to see the difference and tell the difference that he makes when he's on the court and when he's not on the court. One other thing I have to bring up, and I know this is like people are not going to see it, but if you're really watching the games, his defense hasn't been bad at all. Like I'm not saying he's a world stopper and he's going to lock down the best, but he's played much better defense these past 2 games. Only thing, of course, on fast break, he's a turnstile. But I mean, a lot of people are now, specifically because of the take foul rule, and when you got 3-on-1 breaks and 2-on-1 breaks, there's really nothing you could do. But specifically, like on defense, got a couple steals last night, a couple steals in Boston, or a steal or 2 in Boston, and then just like switching, or they're playing a little more switching defense now. So he's like switching on the bigger guys, trying to hold his own. So that was something that was a little surprising as well for me. But I look forward to James Harden continuing to kind of honestly be, and we want Embiid to do it. We can get into Embiid soon too, but he's going to be kind of the engine, really. And for me, it makes sense. And we'll talk about the dynamic. I'll bring it up now. The dynamic of Embiid not playing well right now, and Harden playing well. He hasn't really had that in a while. When he hasn't played well, the team has lost games. I mean, they lost the last 2 games, but it was really like Ben Simmons. Like, he never had to necessarily worry about, like, okay, like, what are we? What is the city thinking? What is the team thinking? Like, I'm not playing well. Like, but the fact that Harden is playing so well and he's the co-stars, like, I don't know how Embiid is going to work through this. He said he wants James to be more aggressive and scoring the ball, which he has been doing, which is needed because Embiid honestly doesn't need to score 30 a night. He shouldn't. He needs to get his scoring, whatever he needs to do, play better defense, and stay healthy to make it to the end of the season and in the playoffs when it really matters. I feel like this team, yes, they're projected to win a ton of games, which they still can and still will. But I think at the end of the day, how Joel shows up in the playoffs in one piece is most important. And that's the biggest thing right now where I'm looking at, and it's just interesting to see like how Embiid's gonna bounce back. What's your thoughts on Embiid thus far?
Yeah, so for me, the biggest thing's body language, first and foremost. That's it. And I hate that we're talking about it again with Joel Embiid, but here it is. Joel Embiid is great. There is no denying that. However, you do run through certain ebbs and flows of him and having poor body language, and that was evident last night. And it seemed to be clearly something holding this team back. Now, Doc Rivers has since said that Embiid was dealing with plantar fasciitis during the offseason, and that kind of
Which I would like to say before we continue, that is terrible.
yeah,
Plantar fasciitis is terrible,
yeah,
and I'm not 7
especially for a
foot.
big guy.
Yes, like I've had plantar fasciitis, and it's almost ruined my life. Like,
Yeah.
so I couldn't even imagine. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I was just gonna say, like, so, and there's gonna be people who are gonna say that that's a load, or that's a convenient excuse, whatever it is. I think you look at Embiid's history, and there's no doubt there's a large chance that he had plantar fasciitis. It's like he's a big guy who's extremely athletic, and uh, plays at a higher level than if not every other center, just about every other center in the league. So, like, yeah, like that, a plantar fasciitis is a sensical injury to have even during the off season. So, um, you take that, like, it makes sense if it kind of slows his progression into getting into game shape. You come in and you're not really quite in game shape. I get it. I understand it. The body language issue is separate, is the problem. So if you're talking about Joel Embiid like not being able to perform well, or if you're talking about him not like out muscling Giannis or being able to close out on a guy, I get that. But it's the slumped over, it's that kind of stuff. And you watch at the end of the game, defensively, he was hustling. He was actually over hustling at the end of the game last night against the Bucks. Now, obviously, everyone's talking about Tobias Harris' big defensive snafu, and not reaching out on Wes Matthews. Joel also made a poor defensive play, overreacting defensively, and just because he was worried, understandably so, about giving up the big bucket, he overcommitted on a defensive rotation. So while that did not lead to the bucket, it is its own issue, but it's showing at least hustle. But it's just not even, because that's not the level that he played with the entire game. You
Yeah,
watch early on, and he doesn't have that same energy.
and my thoughts are this, right? This is why you bring up a guy named PJ Tucker into your locker room, right? Yo, you're a veteran leader. You won championships. You're a hard nosed player. Yo, pick your head up. Like, we are following after you, right? You and Harden are the reason I came here, Maury as well, whatever. But we're looking to you to lead. And if everybody in the world can see it, we see it too, right? Pick your head up. I think that's the most important thing. And we all do it. I mean, if
Yeah,
you play
yeah, we
recreational
do.
sports, if you play high school, so like people have these moments, but you got to have that person that's telling you to like pick your head up.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping that PJ Tucker is having these type of conversations with him because he needs it. Like you said, this is like this. He's a repeat offender. Like when
yeah,
things are not going Joel's way, he pouts. You can
yeah,
tell he plays hard on the bench. He's not into it. Like
yeah,
you get like all those things, and that's just maybe how he is. But it's like
yeah,
that has to change. Like you're trying to be a leader. Like you have guys that are coming up in this league looking after you. And I'm not saying Maxi is going to be like that, but Maxi is looking up to you. Like Maxi
yeah,
hopes to be a star one day,
mhm,
and he's ascending. But it's like he's trying to follow after you. And if you set these examples,
yeah,
he could follow after that. And
mhm,
I just think that Joel's body language, like his bad play or bad play, I want to say his bad play. His play that hasn't played up to his potential because
Yeah,
that's one thing. But like you said,
yeah,
the the body language is another thing, and as well as him because he's playing bad, he's forcing it,
yeah,
and it's bothersome because this is not a team that's without other guys now. Like, even if you want to go towards the beginning of last season where Maxi hadn't ascended yet, and you had no Ben Simmons, and Tobias was had COVID, like all these things where like you had to force it, like you don't have to force it. Like you have James Harden who played well, you have Maxi who now you can tell because specifically last game Joel wasn't playing well, so Maxi was forcing his offense, and you could tell like he was forcing it, and he wasn't getting the groove because he wasn't really touching the ball like that, and it's just like to me that's coaching. Like I know you trying to get your big fella, into the game, specifically in the fourth quarter where they set up a play for him when it was like tied or something like that to kind of let him get his confidence and get a bucket, which is normally those mid range little jumpers are cash, but it's just like you got to go somewhere else in that time. And I think,
yeah,
Maxi needs to get more looks. Tobias was aggressive in game one of the season. I think he needs to, when the time is right, he needs to get more looks. And I mean, Harden's been playing well, but, you know, I think that, like you said, the biggest thing is body language with Embiid. He's going to play well. He might play well tomorrow, but
yeah.
he has to change
I mean,
how.
he kind of better. He's going up against Jakob Poeltl, who is a very good defender, but like this is not dealing with the combination of Brook Lopez and Giannis. Like this is not going up against Al Horford, who has historically had Joel Embiid's number. Like
Right,
this is a guy who like he's a tough enough task that you're not going to kind of underestimate him, or at least you shouldn't.
right.
But you should absolutely put up a 30 bucket on Jakob Poeltl. That just as a bounce back.
Yep,
That's
yep.
depending on minutes. If it's a blowout, maybe he doesn't even play that much. Because if it is, Doc has to find a way to get some rest for his guys. Because you're
Yes,
talking about James Harden playing 39 minutes a game. You're talking about Joel Embiid. He's at 30. And this number right here. So Joel Embiid's averaging 36 and a half minutes per game between two games. Uh, I'm surprised looking back. He played 37 in game one, 36 in game two. I'm surprised that he played 36 minutes in game two because it did not feel like it. Because there was a really, really long stretch of Joel Embiid on the bench, PJ Tucker at the five, and this is when the comeback was happening, right? And it's stuff like this that should be in Joel Embiid's head and help him to realize that when he's out there, sulking and everything like that, yeah, you're right. He needs to keep his head up. And it's for Doc to be in his ear during that time to say, hey, you need to keep your head up because, the one, when I think about, keeping your head up in basketball, the thing I always think about is Jalen Hands literally picking up Moses Brown's chin, right? Lifting up his head, right? Most people, I think, may know that. If you're not, check it out. It was a very unique opportunity. We saw you at UCLA, great leadership by Jalen Hands, but you're not walking up to Joel Embiid and doing that. Moses Brown at UCLA that's different. You as like DeAnthony Melton, who's a guy we don't have to worry about his energy and hustle. He's not going up to Joel Embiid and doing that, nor should he. It wouldn't be well received. Really, if him and Harden are close like that, which is probably too early for that to happen, that's one way that could happen. That kind of, and not publicly like that, but that whole kind of pick your head up message. And if not that, it's got to be the head coach. This shouldn't be an issue in the first place. But if you're going to have someone call you out on it, it's either got to be co-superstar or it's got to be the head coach if you're someone of Joel Embiid's level. And we don't know if Doc Rivers is or is not doing it, but what we know is that what has happened has not worked yet so far. So maybe it is the injury. Maybe it is, Joel just not really being receptive to it, to that kind of coaching up. Maybe Doc's not coaching him up the way that he should be. We don't know yet. It's only 2 games into the season, which is a great thing because that just means there's so much time to figure this all out. I think it was
right.
Francis Parker who on Twitter mentioned, how Joel Embiid has a history of starting games slow, right? And it's not this maybe is a little bit different if we talk about the body language, but I feel like we all kind of remember a little bit of negative body language each and every year. But we're gonna have that Joel Embiid game eventually. He's gonna get his head right eventually, and we're gonna forget all of these problems. The only thing is, you want him to realize and be a little more self-aware, so that you don't have to worry about these problems coming back. That's my top concern right now.
I agree. And I think one thing I want to touch on, you mentioned about Doc, and I want to get your thoughts on Doc real quick, as far as overreactions, whatever. I feel like we saw these two games. I just feel like we saw the whole Doc Rivers experience, right? From the good and the bad. And like one good thing I noticed yesterday, I was like, oh, maybe Doc is changing is he did defensive, offensive subs, brought him a Matisse and House for Maxey and Harden. I'm like, oh, like that's really smart. Like final possession of the game or whatever the case may be, like, you know, he did that and then Tobias wound up and ended up making a mistake on that defensive rotation. But I'm like, oh, that was like really smart. But then you also see Doc let the Sixers go down 13 points without calling a timeout when they were only down two, like started thinking it's like, oh, I know he wants to let his guys work through it, but it's like you got to kind of kill the momentum, get maybe the right people back in the game
Yeah,
and or draw a play to get an easy bucket so you can start
yeah.
getting your guys some confidence or whatever. But it's just like,
Mhm.
sometimes it's just and again, I'm not an NFL coach, I mean NBA coach, and probably hard. I mean, not probably hard. It's really hard to the coach, but it's just like Doc continues to make the same, I feel like, coaching errors all the time. And it's just like also like one good thing we saw, like Doc went with Paul Reed. Okay, Paul Reed wasn't working. Then he put Harrell in because he wanted more offense. All right, cool. Harrell's not working on defense. Fine. I'll go with PJ Tucker. And that worked. So like I'm glad he did that. But it's just like it's one of those things where it's just like very I'm just like, yo, I need to see more from Doc this season because honestly, like the talent is there. You're a Hall of Fame coach. Like you have to help lead these guys and put them in the right position to be a champion and being a championship team, a championship contender. Like I know it's only one rock, and I know James Harden's so ball dominant. I get it. The offense is gonna run through him. I got it. Like the ascension of Maxi. You got to call more plays specifically for him. And it don't always have to be when James Harden's not in the game. Like these are the delicate balances. I get it, but other people do it. So he has to just get better at that. I'm hoping to see some like newer school things from Doc as we go through the season. And I'm not gonna overreact on Doc because I'm quickly on the fire Doc train, but um I hope to just see some improvements. I'm not going to overreact because I did to like some people are like you see people tweet how long is Doc going to last in Philly this season, and I seen like somebody was like, oh, let's put a poll November, December, January, whatever, and it's just like, all right, he's 0-2. The team was 0-2, fine. They'll get better, but I'm just hoping that he continues to do things like defensive swaps and having PJ Tucker at the five because you trust him and there's more switchability and stuff like that. Not necessarily going Montrezl Harrell when at the end of the day, like defensively, he's a liability. First play Montrezl out there, he forgets that he's guarding Brook Lopez and leaves him wide open for 3 that he cashes. Brook Lopez played well, really well. And he seems to be like, I don't know, Achilles heel for this team. Like, it's like, I don't know. I'd rather be guard Giannis and somebody else guard Brook Lopez because he just seems to be wide open all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the tough part, right? So PJ Tucker did actually a very good job guarding Giannis last year, and I would even argue
Yeah,
a solid job last night.
I agree. I
Obviously,
agree. I
Giannis
agree.
had a near triple double, but you look at his scoring numbers, and yeah, it's less than the normal superstar performance
Yeah,
that
the
people
30
see from
points that
Giannis.
he's
So
going to normally get against everybody else.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly, and that's the thing. You look at guys like Giannis, you get guys that like Kevin Durant, and you don't say, I need a guy who can stop him. You need a guy who can slow him down. Get a guy who keep him under 30. And that's seemingly crazy to say, but that's just how good of an offensive player those kind of players are. So PJ Tucker did fine enough on Giannis. I absolutely, though, hear you on the Joel Embiid, Brook Lopez problem, because that is historically proven that there's just that issue on those kind of those stretch bigs as opposed to the guys who kind of bang down low. Karl Anthony Towns notwithstanding. But, when you look at guys like Brook Lopez, when you look at, even Mo Bamba, who can stretch the floor, has had some successful games against Joel Embiid in the past when his shot is on. It's just that matter of rotation because Joel is so much more comfortable down low in the post. So, do you run some kind of hybrid, zone defense where, I hate to bring out box and one, but just something where you have Tucker on Giannis and you're able to kind of work on rotations there otherwise. But 16 points is like, it may not sound like that much. That's way too much for Brook Lopez against the Sixers team. Like that's just too much. Like that's the kind of
And
game where you're like, you have one of the best defensive players in the league in Joel Embiid. You're talking about a guy who shouldn't be able to score 10 points against Joel Embiid.
and I'm not worried about the amount of points. It's the amount of wide open shots he has. Like that's the
Well,
problem.
yeah, it's because you have to think about the situation that those points were accrued.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at those situations, it's like play breaks down for Milwaukee. Oh, there's Brook Lopez corner three wide open. It's the value of those points is more than the number. And that's the biggest issue with it all. But you think about it, and it's like every time Brook Lopez hit a bucket last night, it seemed like a big bucket. Either the play had broken down, or it was a crucial moment for Milwaukee, and it can't be allowed to happen. And I can't expect, and no one really should expect, Joel Embiid to be, kind of running on the perimeter the entire game defensively, because that's not where he's most helpful. That's not his game. So, yeah, I think kind of a rotation, putting Embiid on Giannis is absolutely a great idea. And I think come playoff time, it's something that you'll see as well. But it's just not, I don't know. I'm still mad over the Brook Lopez thing, if I'm being honest with you, because it's not acceptable what it was. But it's early in the season, so there's still so much time for that to change. So we'll see what happens defensively. I think you're right. I think Doc really has to kind of shore some things up as far as that goes. As far as his standing with the team, yeah, people are already talking about firing Doc Rivers. When I say people, I don't mean people within the Philadelphia 76ers organization. Let me make that clear. I mean people, on Twitter. I've had
Fans.
I've had a few friends bring it up to me. That's where we're at as far as people talking about firing Doc Rivers.
Right.
Is Doc going to make it for the entire season? I don't know. I can't say that for sure.
Right.
We've seen it happen before where coaches with high expectations get off to very slow starts
Mm-hmm.
and you decide to move on. I will also say there is a great coaching staff behind Doc Rivers here.
There is. Yep.
So there are plenty of replacement options. Does that mean Doc's going anywhere? Absolutely not. Okay. And I do think that there are a lot of things that Doc Rivers could do better, but there's also a lot of things that he does do well. We have to keep in mind also.
Absolutely.
It was nice to see the adjustment putting out Paul. Listen, everyone was upset when Montrezl Harrell took the court for as long as he did against the Boston Celtics.
Right.
Game 2 comes out. What does he do? Paul Reed is the first guy replacing Joel Embiid. Boom, adjustment. A game late, but boom, adjustment, right? So you mentioned Paul Reed wasn't working. He goes to Montrezl Harrell, and while Harrell, it doesn't really seem like a great positional matchup, you think, all right, well, you want a guy who wants to bring some energy in this game. There's no energy or life on the Sixers team. Bring in Montrezl Harrell, injection of energy. It made sense. It didn't work, but it made sense. Doesn't work, like you said, goes to PJ Tucker. Game changes.
Absolutely.
Game absolutely changes.
Absolutely.
So he, and I know you gave credit to him, but I think more people have to do the same and give credit for things such as that. So it's 2 games in, right? Sky's not falling. Everything's going to be okay. They're not winning 82 games. Shocker, right? An NBA team's not going to win 82 games in a season. But Doc Rivers is not getting fired tomorrow. Joel Embiid is not getting traded, not getting traded for Kevin Durant, which is something I saw suggested as well. Which I don't understand what sense it made to put Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid back on the same team together. There's so many things wrong with it. We really don't have time to go into every single thing wrong with trading Embiid for Kevin Durant. But What we can take away, I think, obviously the record's not where we want it to be, but there are enough positive takes that we can feel comfortable with the future of this season for the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden looks like he's back, right? Tyrese Maxey may not be getting, the touches that he needs, but he's looked good in what touches he's had, right? The shot's still there. He's a monster on the fast break. I feel like you blink and he's on the other side of the court. Absolutely insane. You look at guys like PJ Tucker, the shot will eventually fall. That corner three is not really falling with consistency for him. That will change. Defensively, he's been fantastic, I feel like. You look at Daniel House, he's been above what we've expected so far. D'Anthony Melton he might be my favorite player to watch on the Sixers this season, if I'm being flat honest with you. I mean, when you talk about a guy who's feisty, we heard about the dog mentality. Everyone was thinking, PJ Tucker, Montrezl Harrell. I did hear some people talking about the Anthony Melton in that vein, but I feel like because he played for the Grizzlies, not enough people realized just how much of a dog this guy is. I think he's the leader in the doghouse. When you talk about that, like I don't see anyone with as much fight that he has. Because you look at guys like Montrezl Harrell, who he's energy, he's going to get offensive rebounds. He's going to smack somebody upside the head, who challenges him or something like that. But when you look at D'Anthony Melton tried to take on Giannis Antetokounmpo and lay it in over his head. He got the ball off a steal, drove the entire length of the court while covered by Bucks, and went up one-on-one against Giannis. Was it smart? Was it going to go in? Absolutely not. But that's hard. So these are things that will matter. These are things that I think are absolutely positive takeaways. And again, the record's not where you want it to be. They have played the Bucks and the Celtics. I don't want that to sound like an excuse because, yes, you're going to have to beat the Bucks and the Celtics to get and to win the finals. But there are positive developments for a young in terms of experience together, team chemistry kind of team.
Absolutely. I just want to tell the city to relax. It'll be okay. They'll be okay.
Be all right. Absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for us here at the Baseline Scoop today. We will be back next week with a recap of going over the San Antonio Spurs game on Saturday and also Indiana Pacers. So kind of a nice little relaxed period in the schedule after going up against two contenders. So hopefully we will see a couple of blowouts. If not, again, we're going to be looking for positive signs. We're not going to ignore the negative because the negative, you do need to consider it to correct it. But we got to be looking for the positive signs because you're going to correct some of those negative features, right? Anything you see positive right now, hopefully will only grow from here. Okay. So very good opportunity for the Sixers up against two tanking teams. And we got Tyrese versus Tyrese on Monday too. That's what I'm excited for. I want to see that. Get a little Tyrese Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey. So, Justin, any final takeaways from the game? Anything you're looking forward to from the upcoming week before we go?
No, just looking forward to Joel getting back on track. That's what I'm kind of looking for is some good matchups for him to get back on track. So, most important, and then get ready for that double. I think it's a doubleheader in Toronto.
Yeah. So that's going to be the next big challenge or expected big challenge, I should say. But we'll be sure to pregame that as well and go into how that entire series broke down after the fact as well. It's going to be personal. And I love that both games are in Toronto just because I think that's going to be some extra motivation for Joel Embiid in particular. When you look at everyone involved in the series, nobody has any more reason to be motivated and engaged for that series than Joel Embiid. So I think that we're really looking at an opportunity to see that kind of bounce back effort from Embiid. So will be fun. But for now, I'm Zach Chavalella. He's Justin Crosby, and we just hit you with the Baseline Scoop.
Peace.
It's 89-84. Sixers, and they get inside.